Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar show that talks about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our stories of connection to the divine, to that which is bigger than us, to our soul's purpose, to that journey that you can choose to take in this lifetime if you're brave and courageous and want to really know who you are in truth and love. And I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird. I love these kinds of conversations. They intrigue me, they delight me, and I get to have awesome conversations with incredible people from around the world, and I like to have them on my show and share that with you out there, and maybe you'll be on my show one day. You never know. So today I want to welcome Cindy Drummond. Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you.
It's so wonderful to meet Cindy, who I got connected with through the Evolutionary Business Council, through Teresa de Grosbois, and love that woman. She's amazing. So Cindy has had a successful career in recruitment, was her priority in her 20s, and in her 30s, her role of motherhood took precedent. And then she always had the idea to write a book, but she never really had the topic until suddenly she was single and lonely. While wading through the murky waters of online dating, who's done that out there? Oh boy, that's an adventure in itself. We're going to talk about that today. Cindy realized that she finally had a story to share in hopes of helping other women in a similar situation. And so we are going to talk about that today. Cindy also is the award-winning home builder and is the creator of WOW, Women Only Weekend, which is an annual event that sells out every year in the heart of the Rocky Mountains. So I'm going to put her details in the show notes, but right now let's get started. So obviously we know that you were dating, so you went through a tumultuous time in your life of a separation and all of that kind of stuff. So is that kind of when you started waking up to your purpose?
Uh, well, I wish I would say that it happened that easily. When I first became single, it was a surprise because I didn't realize how bad the relationship I was in until my ex-boyfriend was arrested. So my first priority was getting my kids and I to safety. And so I wouldn't say I was immediately awakened, Carrie. It took a little while, but then I realized that I didn't want to be alone the rest of my life. So how was I going to learn how to trust again, learn how to become a whole person again, and what was that going to look like?
Yeah. So that journey is really tumultuous because especially if you have children, you're like, okay, this isn't working out the way I thought it was going to work out. Now all of a sudden my status has changed and I'm responsible for everything and I don't have a partner that I can rely on. That's intense. So how did you deal with that?
Well, that's how my Women Only Weekend was first birthed, I guess, first born. So once my kids were safe, the first thing I did was I wanted to focus on something positive, and I wanted to bring women together. So I created my first event, Women Only Weekend, and that event sold out in 14 weeks, and I had 65 women in the room. And that gave me the confidence and the friendship and the support then to know that I didn't need to have a man in my life, but B, if I wanted to, then I knew that I had other people around me and rallying me. And so that then gave me the courage to start going online and start looking at my options.
You know what? That is so great. So basically you said, let's get a bunch of women together and do a weekend. And you led the weekend, even though you were also like in that space of feeling lonely and kind of like, what do I do here?
That's exactly what happened. I remember on the Saturday evening during the event, and two women that I didn't know came up to me and said, this event, and they said the words life-changing. They said, and I realized that event actually probably, it sounds a bit of hyperbole, but it kind of did save my life. Like, it gave me a purpose. And you're right, like, I was hurting, but I showed up in a different way as somebody that was leading other people. And I think that don't they say that you can't be depressed when you're in service of others? And so I think that's exactly what happened. Is I gave myself something to focus on other than feeling sorry for myself.
Which is so great because, you know, when we have something bad, well, bad, so we label it as bad, right? Like we know that
Yeah.
now. But before we wake up, we think it's bad. You know, when we had something bad happen in our lives, then we're gonna like in resistance to that, right? And we can go into denial of it. We can go into self-pity. We can go into victim. We can go into like, oh my God, my life is not what I thought it was, and holding on to the vision and then holding on to like the resentment that it's not what you thought it was going to be. Or we can just go, okay, the whole thing is just screwed, you know, it fell apart, whatever. Now what? I'm going to give, so you said, now what? I'm going to give myself support.
Absolutely. Like the bad day led to the best year of my life.
Wow, isn't that, I love that. The bad day, I'm going to use one of those quotes. The bad day led to the best year of my life. I'm going to write that down because that is so true. Often the bad days, like for me, like, you know, leaving my marriage, my first 20-year relationship was really challenging. It was a big decision to make after 20 years of like psychotherapy and couples therapy and like trying to force it to work and all that stuff, right? And then it doesn't. Man, that's discouraging. But it like that bad moment of like, okay, I'm just going to let go of it and I'm going to see what opens next was the best thing that ever happened. It led to like 8 years of an incredible spiritual journey that I wouldn't trade in. It's been incredible what I've learned, you know? So yeah, the bad day led to the best year ever. So, then you also, so you had this women connection, which I think is fabulous. And, you know, we can talk about that a little bit, but I think what's really juicy to talk about now is the dating thing, you know, like, wow, it's so interesting. Tell me about your experience of dating after you've been in a relationship with, you know, a partner and kids.
Well, I was pretty naive, right? Because I I glamorized it. Like I was like, okay. So I said, okay, well, I probably won't meet somebody within the first couple dates. So I'm going to go on 50 dates over the course of a year. And I'm going to get wined and dined, and I'm going to, you know, I'm going to figure out this lost art of dating. And much to my dismay, that's not how the dating world works right now. It is very frenetic. It's very fast paced. It's very uh, heartless in some ways because it's so
You're like,
easy.
just swipe left or swipe right.
Exactly. Exactly. And how do
Yeah.
you make a connection, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of all about like, what can I get for me? Like when you first start that, I don't know, when I first started that, it was, the experience was sort of shopping, like shopping for men, you know, like, and I know men
Absolutely.
were shopping for women. So it's like, okay, swipe, swipe, swipe. Oh, that one's safe. Swipe, you know, it's kind of, and it's by appearance, right? So it's just by like this little glimpse, this little passing glimpse of a picture.
Absolutely. And if you did meet somebody for coffee, it was all I could do not to get back into my car and open up my app again to see what was next. Right. And so,
Oh, wow. That's really big of you to admit that.
well, but I imagine if I looked over in the parked car beside me, he was doing the same thing. Right?
Yeah, totally true. Because it's like, okay, what next adventure am I going to have?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
true. And
That's
how do
like
you,
disposable people.
it's true. It's kind of gross when you say it that way. It's kind of
I
got this
know.
feeling to it.
But I had that feeling too, that it was like, I don't know, like in a way, like it helps you to not get so attached and learn about yourself. Like that part I liked. But in a way too, like this culture is sort of like, I also had this feeling, and maybe it's because I don't know, I've studied a lot of psychology stuff lately about, you know, what happens with your parents and everything, and like anxiety, like anxious attachment, you know, is something that I had at the time when I was dating. I had anxious attachment. And so for me, like the more somebody pulled away, the more I wanted to like get closer. It would pull away and I want to get closer. And
Mhm.
so this whole thing for me was a learning, actually. because a lot of other people were not like that. They were like, just throw it away, you know, like, okay, I'm on to the next thing. I'm not attached at all. Like I have zero attachment. But it just sat with you. I could date you for 3 months and have zero attachment. It's weird out there, the disconnection.
It is absolutely weird. And I think I fell into the category of I am not going to get attached. I was not going to, because I had set a goal. I was going to go on 50 dates. So I couldn't fall for date number 5 because there could have been 45 other possibilities that I needed to see.
Gosh, yeah, that is so true. So that's the flip side of this, right? The flip side is like, if, like, say for a person like me that's super anxious attached, you know, like before, not anymore, because I had to go through the whole process, but before I was like, oh my God, this could be the one, this could be the one. And my mentality was, this could be the guy. And so my mind was set to like try to make this person the guy, right? Every single person I met, okay, my mind's like, okay, well, I can skip over that. I won't even look at that thing. I'll just accept it because like, this is the guy. Oh, don't think about that. You know, it was like my whole mentality was like that. But what you're suggesting is no, like, don't let yourself do that. Go out and date like 50 guys.
I think so. I mean, because
Because you might find out about yourself, right? You might find something new. I guess it's all in the agreement that you have with it.
Carrie, and that's, you just led to the aha moment. At some point, I realized that the men were playing a very little part in this whole piece of dating. I was learning how to date myself.
Oh,
Right?
that's so cool. Tell me more about that.
It didn't come quickly. Um, so I would often write words of wisdom to myself, and I have them in the book, and they were words of wisdom to myself. And at one point, I finally realized, and we know this, it's a mirror. So, you know, how was I showing up for these dates? Was I investing in these dates? What was I bringing to the table? And when I figured out that piece, it took some time, then there was a switch. All of a sudden, I was creating deeper connections. I was talking to fellows that I think there was a few possibilities of relationships with, because I was different. I had changed. They hadn't.
Yeah, that's the thing is you were seeing yourself in the mirror of these other people. So, okay, so I went through a similar thing, but I had a little different focus. Like I was definitely geared on getting the guy. Like I was going to get the guy eventually. So that was my whole focus, was going to find the one. So I had a little different focus. You had like the 50 to learn about yourself, and I had like, I'm going to go get the guy. So when I was doing it, what I noticed was that I could make my list, you know, my checklist of everything I wanted to receive, you know, from a relationship. And then I would go on a date, and then I would notice about the person, or a couple of dates with the person, whatever, one or two, however it sort of evolved. And then I would start to go, okay, well, this doesn't exactly, you know, I forgot to mention, let me add, you know, dear spirit, I forgot to mention there's a few other items. And so I would add them to my list. So I did that for like a couple years, where I just sort of kept adding to the list when it didn't work out. And I would go, okay, I forgot to say this. And then I would add more things. But I did realize the same thing, that I was dating myself actually. Like I was becoming the person I wanted to attract.
Absolutely. And as you said, as you're adding to your list of what you're looking for, I realized that I was starting my own list of the inventory and the assets that I had. And I knew my limitations. You know, if I met somebody who was super into hiking and camping outdoors and all that, I was like, okay, that might be not one of my assets. That might be a liability, but what do I bring to the table for somebody else, right?
Yeah, and the other thing is like opening up the idea of what you're actually, like, you're connecting with a bunch of people, but if it doesn't work out in the sort of romantic sense, it doesn't mean that there isn't a friendship there or a connection or something, right? Like there could be a lot of other things that come out of that connection.
You're always looking for a golf partner or someone to go to, and then that's the piece too, right? Like I was aware of that. Could I go golfing with this guy? Could he be my date at my Christmas party? It doesn't have to be my husband.
Yeah, he doesn't have to be, it doesn't, so you're basically saying you became open to what this, like the opportunity that was being presented in the connection, rather than
Absolutely.
predetermining what it was about.
Absolutely.
And so how long did it take you to get that mind shift?
It took almost, well,
It takes a while, doesn't it? How long did it take?
11 months for sure before there was a switch, I think.
So how many dates had gone, how many different guys had you dated by then before you really made the switch?
51.
Wow. That is so cool. So like your whole experiment.
My full experiment.
It took you, oh gosh, isn't that funny? 51. You said it for 50, and then the 51 was the one where you're like, okay, I get it now.
But I didn't marry 51. I married 54.
Okay, but you got the switch at 51.
Yeah.
Because, okay, this is so cool, because I also realized that you have to let go of it. It's like, okay, whatever you thought you were going to get or thought you were going to do, and you initiated it, there's this way that there's a deep letting go of the outcome at some point in order for the outcome to manifest.
Absolutely. And I was willing to go on 100 dates if that's what it took. But I think, I don't know, was that magic number? And you're right. Like as soon as I had hit that number, I let it go. Mission accomplished, whatever that was. And then it switched.
And then it switched because you reached your 50, so that you set out to do, and you were like, well, guess I'll continue and it'll just be fun now, right?
Maybe a smarter person could just set their goal as 10. Maybe that would be easier.
I don't know, 50 is such it's an interesting number. And I think that they say like you've got to do what, like 3 months in order to change a habit in your brain. So
Yeah.
50 seems reasonable to me. It took you a year. That is like a date a week.
And when people are shocked when I say 50, I say, okay, think back to a classroom setting where you were sitting in grade 11 and you looked around the room, and let's say there was 20 boys in your classroom. You didn't like 20 of them. You maybe liked one. So why would you think that if you only went on 3 dates, 5 dates, 6 dates before getting frustrated, it's a numbers game.
Yeah, it's a numbers game. Well, yes, it is. And I also believe it's it's becoming what you like, finding out about who you really are. Because there's that deep pattern in myself, and I notice it in other women, where they'll be willing to be malleable to accept the man that's in front of them just to have one. Like, like I'll just be malleable about it, and I'll just like what you like. So then I can, because I like your package or the way you look, or I like the fact that you have a job, or who knows what. And so I'll just accept I'll overlook all the other little voices inside of me that are like, it's not really working out for me.
Because we want them to like us, right?
Because we want to be liked. Did you notice in yourself the domestication, the conditioning of, thinking that you had to have a man?
No, not that I had to have a man, I don't think. Not that I had to have a man, but I absolutely noticed, and I didn't know this before, that doesn't have to be a man, but if you live alone, if you have nobody to be accountable for, this is a slippery slope. Nobody cares if you don't brush your teeth before you go to bed. Nobody cares if you sleep on the couch. So I did sort of find myself thinking, I don't need to have a man, but I do need to be accountable to people.
Tell me more about that. So what does that mean? I need to be more accountable to people in terms of relationship, in terms of dating, in terms of what?
I think in terms of relationship, in terms of dating, in terms of life, I think that we are all looking to connect, and um, and I know some people that are single, and they're not always willing to admit how lonely they are when they come home from work and it's Friday, and they've, like, if you don't have a purpose, if you don't have to get up to go to work the next morning, or you don't have somewhere to go, it just can be very can just be very sad, which can lead to depression and other things, right?
Yeah, I mean, I remember feeling that way for sure during the dating, because what I found is it raises up a lot of insecurities.
Hmm.
You know, at first especially, I was getting stronger and stronger through the process, which I think you would say for yourself. It seems like also, like, the more dates you have, like, the more confident you get. Like, it's okay. This isn't the only man alive on earth. But I think that there is that question of, am I going to find somebody, am I going to find somebody that likes me, for who I am and who I like them as well? Am I going to have that chemistry with somebody? And if you've experienced it, then it's kind of like, am I going to get that again with somebody else? Because we can have a lot of thoughts about, oh, it doesn't exist anymore. Like, it's gone. That was the one person. I think there's a lot of fairy tales, at least that I picked up on in our culture, about, like, there's the one Prince Charming and then all the rest of them are frogs. So if you already had Prince Charming, or you thought you did, then there's no more. Like, you've had yours, but that's not true. I don't think, not anymore.
Absolutely, and I think that um, we as we as we grow and mature, the Prince Charming also changes, right? Like,
Totally. Tell me more about
yeah.
that. Like, what did you notice in yourself with some shifts through this dating process, for what you thought you were looking for when you started and what you ended up being interested in?
Well, let's even go prior to the dating experience, because when I was in my 20s, I was looking for someone who would be a good father. I was looking for somebody who, who wanted to build a home with me. And then, at a certain point, you're like, okay, well, now I've got kids, and now I'm looking for somebody to be this. And so, even through the dating process, and you're right, like, I had that list as well. I simplified it somewhere in the middle, where I said, okay, I just need three things. I just need them to have, like, a house, a couple of kids of their own, and maybe three suits, so that they, because I didn't want to put too many parameters on what I was looking for. Um, but I wanted somebody who could relate to me. I wanted somebody who had the same mindset that I had. Because you're right, and you said it earlier, is that if you don't have a short specific list, it's very easy to make yourself be with somebody who's not a good fit, right?
Yeah, and also there's the loneliness thing. Like, you can be lonely in the middle of a relationship.
Absolutely.
So you can feel misunderstood right in the middle of a relationship. Like, being in a relationship doesn't, it actually invites more challenges, I find, like, but anyway, being alone has its benefits as well, and it does have its challenges, but it has its benefits. So there's not one better than the other in my experience. I think, if now that I know what see, my understanding of being in a relationship has changed.
Right.
So tell me about how that has changed for you, your understanding of being in a relationship.
Oh, I'm still learning. Uh, being in a
So am I.
relationship, being in a relationship, I think how that's changed for me is it really is about compromise and collaboration, and it's not about being right all the time. It's about having a voice and listening, right? And sometimes there's negotiation, and sometimes there's just, this is not the hill I'm going to die on, right? So knowing what your boundaries are. But yeah, you don't have to be right. It's not about being right.
Yeah, my first relationship was a lot about who's right. So there was a lot of those sort of power struggles, in the relationship. And then when I left, then I had this exploration period where I experienced some of what you were talking about of like, is this a match? Is this not a match? You know, who is this person, right? And then who am I? And then I'm still interested in that growth process that you went through. Like, you must have found out just so much information about yourself over that year's time of like a weekly dating, like to grow you into the person that has a new kind of relationship now. Because I bet the relationship you currently have is really different than the one you had before.
100%. Um, I remember when I first became single, somebody said to me, I hope you get that joie de vie back that you used to have when I first met you. Because I didn't know it was gone.
Hmm.
And but then I remembered her saying that quite often throughout the year, and I was like, yeah, like what happened to that girl in her 20s who was brave and bold um and had boundaries. And so while I gained all that back, because I had lost it, I had it in my 20s. It just disappeared for a while, and then but I've also softened some of that too, because like you said, in my 20s I probably always had to be right. In my 20s, I was probably a little selfish. And so then I went to the other extreme where I had no self identity and didn't, and, just let somebody walk all over me. And then to come to a middle ground of, okay, this is who I am. This is what I will accept. This is what I won't accept. And how can we work together so that we both are in the best, both are the best people we can be in this relationship.
Yeah, I love that coming to the center and being, two people just like equal partners in a relationship, learning about each other and themselves. I like that. So, and that, having children also, I think, influences this conversation quite a bit, for the journey between the 20s where you know it all into, then you have kids and you realize, I don't know anything.
Right.
Talk about that a little bit. What was that journey like for you, and how'd that grow you into the person you are today?
Well, I have two daughters in their 20s, and so that all hits home really, really easily for me. Um, that's a whole other book. That book's called Blended.
That's another topic, but
That's
it
another
is
topic.
interesting for this conversation, though.
Absolutely. And because I had daughters that were 13 and 16 while I was going through this dating process, I had to be really cognizant of how I was behaving in front of my daughters as well, right? And so they had seen me leave this not great relationship, and how was I going to show them the lessons of what that looked like, and how I was going to start dating, and how I was going to find the right person for me. Because I mean, I could give them advice all day long, but really my actions are going to speak way louder than my words.
Yeah, absolutely. And you learn that through the dating process, through coming into, putting down the masks, I imagine, and just coming in as yourself, your authentic voice. Teaching that is challenging because I think I don't know that we can escape not knowing who we are when we're 20. I mean, I feel like we have to go through that process, to get out there and start making a mess, and then get into the part of like, uh-oh, I'm in my mess and now I've got to clean it up somehow. So, what was it like dating with your children? Like how was that? Like holding the container of raising your children and going on dates?
Um, it was good for me because I didn't have my kids full time then. They were still going back and forth to their dad, who's not the bad guy in my story. Their dad was before the bad guy. So I tried to keep my dating separate from when I was with my kids. I tried to make sure that they were not part of it. I tried to I didn't introduce my kids to anybody throughout the process because I didn't want they were not dating. I was dating. And when I was ready for them to meet somebody, that was going to be a long time in. So they were kept out of it. They knew about it a little bit. If you had asked them about it, they probably would have just rolled their eyes and thought I was crazy a little. But they knew about it. They weren't part of it.
Yeah, I did the same thing because I felt like, you know, a transition like a divorce is a really big one. And especially when it's with their father, you know. So, you know, I felt like being their mother, and I have two sons. So I felt like being their mother was a sensitive thing for sons to witness. Their, and I think for daughters in a different way, but I don't have daughters, so I can't really speak to that. But just being their mom, they didn't really need to see a bunch of guys coming around being with their mom, you know. So
Right.
I was like, yeah, that's just going to be for me. But they knew because I had people on the phone or whatever that I would talk to after they were in bed. And actually, there was one night my son was like, my younger son was like, you just wanted to put me to bed so you can go talk to Rob, you know? And I was like, okay, we're not going to do that. So then I realized he just felt like he was being left out of something because I would put him to bed at the normal time. And then I would go have this other thing going on, and he could feel that there was something else happening, and he was a little jealous about it. So I just created some special time with him. I like, okay, let's read a book. You know, we're gonna have mommy and Tanner time, and we're gonna read books every night before you go to bed. And so he knew that he was. I'm not trying to replace you or anything like that. There's a lot of weird dynamics that go on in kids' minds when their parent is dating, and my their father was not so hidden about it. So, you know, there's a little revolving door happening on that side, which was hard for them because
Yes.
they were like, I remember the first time my sons came, and it was only a month after I left, and they were like, I saw daddy kissing somebody. And I was like, and he just burst into tears. And I was like, I'm so sorry. You know, I had not anticipated that. And I felt terrible about it. So it was that moment that I went, you know what, I'm not doing that. So they're not going to see me kissing anybody. Like, that's not happening.
They're so smart. And yes, kids are resilient, but our actions can also leave a lasting effect on them and their relationships too. And it's a lot of responsibility dating when you've got kids of any age, I think.
Yeah, because also, if you're emotionally invested in it, it sounds like you had a pretty good attitude about it, but I'm sure there were a few times where you maybe felt something and got a little attached or something like that. And then you have your own emotions and feelings when it doesn't work out, that then you've got to try to like manage without it spreading, you know, all over the kids too. Like if you have a down day or something, like that's challenging too.
It is challenging. And, you know, we're so attached to our phones and everything else. So, you know, I know that I was guilty of, did he text me back? Did anyone look at my profile today? Did anybody swipe? And your kids see that, right? And so I wasn't perfect. I didn't have it all figured out for sure, but
Well,
you're
neither did
right.
I.
To try and you know, not have your phone. I mean, it's just common sense, but trying to not look at your phone when you're out for dinner with your kids, or when you are spending time with them, right?
Yeah, but that loneliness is really deep, and I know you experience that, Cindy. It's like it's so deep and pervasive, that loneliness between relationships. Like I had a 20-year partnership, and then all of a sudden it was over. And I actually had one of the first guys I dated say, you know, Carrie, it's like you're trying to like shoo the next guy into the open slot, you know, like, and that doesn't work that way. And that was a really brutal thing to say, but it was completely honest.
And I think that women, and probably men too, I think we do that more often than we're willing to admit. Like, whoever fits into that slot, even if it's for like, well, maybe it won't work out, but at least they're here for now. It's better to be with somebody than to be alone. And it's we do it, and I'm not, and we shouldn't do it, but we it's so hard to be alone. And that is one of the things that I would try to remind myself while I was going through this. I did talk out loud to myself quite a bit. And I would say, like, I'd like, Cindy, are you alone today? Are you lonely? Like, because there's a difference. I'm okay with being alone. I struggled with being lonely.
Mm. Yeah, being lonely. Yeah, the loneliness part is that's the part that got us into the codependent relationship to begin with. And that's the part that needs to heal in order to have a true partnership with somebody else. So a lot of times I tell clients, I say, well, you can go about this two ways. You can face your loneliness by being alone, or you can involve other people and learn about yourself through dating. Either way, you're still going to face the loneliness and the insecurities. So it's really just kind of which game do you want to play right now? You want to play the I'm going to face my loneliness game and be alone, or the game of I'm going to involve other people and do it together, face the loneliness. But it's like having the awareness that that's the piece you're actually working on, I think is helpful to know that you're working on
Absolutely.
filling up that hole that thinks it's lonely.
And there's a third piece. I mean, there's the piece of, and I think you have to do all three. I think some days you just have to sit with being alone. I think some days you have to put yourself out there and go on a date. And I think the third piece is you need to find a tribe, right? Like it doesn't have to always be um, it doesn't have to always be looking for your next soulmate. I mean, join pickleball or yoga or go hiking, or there is way more opportunities to, other than online dating and dating, to meet friends, right?
Yeah, to make friends, exactly. And that circles us back to what we were going to talk about with having your tribe and see, you're so perfect that way. I love how you just picked that up. So like that is what you did, is you said, okay, I'm going to create an event where I'm going to invite other women who might be feeling similar to the way I feel. And we're just going to get together and we're going to see what magic happens. And magic happened.
Magic did happen. I didn't know it at the time, but and I think you and I talked about this. I thought I created an event. I think I created a community.
Yeah, because that is, it's those friendships that last beyond relationships, like your romantic relationships, that really get you through it when things get rocky, right? I think it's important to have community and tribe because your what was I going to say? It was it was really key. I lost it. There's just, there's the romantic thing, and that could be a phase in your life, right? Like it could be a short-term relationship. You don't know what those relationships are. Oh, I know what it was. And then when you're in a relationship with somebody and you make couple friends, those relationships usually fall apart when the relationship falls apart. Like a lot of times they disintegrate as well because they were based on the context of you being in that couple relationship with those particular people. So now that you're not, sometimes those also disintegrate, leaving you like without anybody. So I think it's important for resiliency to have just for yourself, for you, a tribe of people that you resonate with, that you can be with, whether it's church or whether it's like you're talking about this women's community that you've created or another type of community, that you have that to, for your own sense of being seen, held, known for an extended period of time.
Absolutely. And I think that for me, that was key. If I hadn't developed that sense of community, there would have been some pretty dark days. And I see that women definitely are, well, maybe men already had it figured out because, they were more into like baseball and golfing and all of that, where women are now finding out how to connect with others and make friendships. But I almost wonder if we need to remind women, and that's what we're doing today, is remind women that they need friendships. Other than couple friendships, they do need to have friends. The red tent, right?
The red tent, yeah, friendships with other women. And and I think the reason why maybe some women don't do that is because maybe they've had some um, less than favorable interactions with other
True.
with other women up until now. But there's, it's helpful for people to know that there are communities that you can become part of where there's a higher way of interacting that happens in those communities with other women, so that there some of the things that you might have experienced previously won't be happening in these kinds of communities, or if it does happen by accident, that you can talk about it.
I think so. I was just talking yesterday to somebody, and they were talking about, women that meet for coffee after going to the gym on a regular basis. And these women have nothing in common. One's a lawyer, one's into hypnotherapy, and yet they're this safe space where nobody ever talks behind anybody's back. They just go there, they work out, but then they always have coffee afterwards. And I loved that when I was hearing that story, because we do need to be kind to other women. We don't need to, we say it, but we have to live it. We can help rise up other women without tearing them down, right? Lift them up.
Yeah, we have to practice what we preach too. It's
Absolutely.
tricky because my mentor, one of my mentors, Heather Ashamara, used to say that when you want to tell somebody something, think about why it is the person you're selecting to tell and why it is you want to tell them the thing.
Yeah.
Because as women, because she does this whole warrior goddess thing, as women, we've learned some pretty destructive patterns for interacting with other women, and we have to unlearn those. And that only happens through self-awareness and practice of when you first start doing it, it's super hard because everything in you wants to go tell the drama story about the so-and-so that just did the such and such to the friend that you have that will totally go roll their eyes and go, oh my God, she's always doing that. And you'll get validated by your friend in your frustration. And everything in you wants to make that call. And it's not the call you need to make. When you step on this path, it's like, okay, why do I want to go tell this story to so-and-so? What am I really looking for? And can I validate myself? And can I help? And this is the loneliness piece. This is back to the, that empty feeling inside piece of wanting to be validated by other people. And so that's why we pick the friends that we have. So they validate us. But sometimes we don't need to be validated. We need to learn and we need to grow.
Yes.
Yeah. That's why the dating experiment is fun, because it's like the most tender aspect of yourself is trying to find a partner. Somebody that understands you, somebody that compliments you. That's like so tender to do that. And that's why it's such a great spiritual exercise to do it while going out. I think when I was raising at the point earlier, it really is like I found a lot of people are like, they treat people like disposable humans. And I don't agree with that. But I think that what we can do is approach it like you did you had a goal in mind, which is that I want to learn about myself and I don't want to get attached, and I want to learn and I want to grow. And you can be very transparent about that right up front, like, hey, in my profile, I am just here to learn and grow and meet 50 guys in a year. And I'm not getting serious about anybody. And this is just an experiment. So if you want to play along, then swipe right or whatever, like.
Why didn't I think of that?
I think a lot of dating is like also wearing masks and pretending, in order to get liked and accepted. And so it's so tender. It's such a tender experiment to run. I did it myself. I understand. But you learn so much about yourself and you become resilient. And then because you can do that for yourself, you can be a good friend to other women, and you can really be there for other people and as a friend and a comrade in arms, for this love thing, this love mastery. So yeah, I love all that. So what's your conference now? Like, you do it still every year, right?
Yes, it's called Women Only Weekend. WOW is the acronym. So it's every October. So we hold it in Canmore, Alberta, which is most people would know Banff in Canada.
Oh yeah.
And it's in the heart of the Rocky Mountains, and 165 women. It's a little bit of it's networking, it's love, learning, and laughter. Somebody might be taking a session on acupuncture while somebody else might be going to a Zumba class. So it's really, honestly, it's just about making a connection.
So it's just about connecting with other women. And do you guys do any transformational things there, or is it just sort of open and free?
I would say that transformational things take place, but if they do, they take place organically.
Awesome. So it's kind of a free curriculum. It lets people just kind of be themselves and explore and meet other people and be in community.
There's lots of actual seminars on a variety of topics. So people will take from it what they need, and sometimes that is transformation, and sometimes it's just too much wine and some karaoke.
That also can be healing.
Yes,
Cut loose.
yes.
Awesome. Well, that sounds fun. And so your book, what's it called again? And where can people find it?
Reflections from the Dating Pool. And you can find it online at Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
Awesome. Reflections from the dating pool. That is fabulous. Well, Cindy, this has been such a delight to have you on the show. Is there any other advice or wisdom you want to offer people on our way concluding this episode who might be going through, this process of being alone and in between relationships and feeling lonely and beyond what we've already shared? Anything else that really speaks to you?
Yeah, I think that my final words of wisdom would be the person that others want to be around.
And how do people do that?
Don't they say that we are the sum of the 5 people we hang around? So if you admire certain traits in people, embody those traits.
Go find some friends that are like that and
Yeah.
invite them to coffee and
Or fake it till you make it, right?
well, you got to keep taking steps, right? And be uncomfortable. Go to your edge.
Absolutely.
Go to the edge and be uncomfortable. You're not going to find the solution in your living room, probably. So,
No, you will not find the solution in your living room.
not if you're lonely and feeling stuck. You're probably not going to find it there. So, definitely a good idea to get out there and, either get a mentor, right? Get a mentor or something like that, and then get a community, a tribe, and start putting yourself out there, learn, read some books. What's your favorite book on this topic, besides yours, of course, but what's your favorite book?
My favorite book on, well, this has nothing to do with anything to do with psychology, but I said The Red Tent. And if anybody has not read The Red Tent by Anita Diamond, I think that biblical story really shows the importance of surrounding yourself with like-minded women.
Beautiful. The Red Tent. Okay, guys, so read that up. And I'm going to put all your links below. Do you have a way for people to get started knowing you, or anything you want to share with them as a pathway to get started with your work and what you're offering?
I would mentor anybody, anytime, whether it's over through email, phone calls, face-to-face. You can find me on my website, which is cindydrummond.ca. Send me an email. I would love to connect. I want to hear horrendous dating stories. I want to hear great dating stories. I want you to come to WOW and karaoke and dance and learn and laugh.
Yeah. Horrendous dating stories, wonderful dating stories. That's awesome. All right. Well, that sounds great. So, well, thank you so much for coming on the show and contributing your expertise and, coming along for my little bit disjointed broadcast today. But thank you for being here. Carrie Hummingbird does have moments of being kind of jolted. So today was one of those, and I thank you for being with us. So we'll see you next time on Soul Nectar Show. Be sure to like and comment on this broadcast and subscribe to Soul Nectar Show so that more people find it. You can subscribe on YouTube or Vimeo or iTunes, of course, and you can always go to the website for more episodes and more information at soulnectar.show. And for now, we're going to give you kisses and say goodbye. Would you like to join me with giving kisses, Cindy? Here we go. Thank you all for being here. Love you so much, and we'll see you next time on Soul Nectar Show. Bye for now.